damn it, this is too hard! Here's what I think of your test, Mr. Teacher!
You just stood up to me. Congratulations. That was the test.
Yes, you clicked on the right video, but you might be wondering, why the heck did I show that clip? It's just a random cutaway gag from the show Family Guy, where Peter tells the doctor that he's never had a prostate exam, but he's had other exams, like the one he took in college. Well, the premise behind this clip is obviously insane. A professor administers an exam. The student says that the test is too hard, and the professor is wrong. The student calls out the professor, and the professor says that he's so impressed by what the student just did that he ends up passing him and gaining respect for him. Obviously, if you tried that in college, or if you tried that in any profession, you'd be expelled, fired, let go, suspended, or insert literally any other termination word on the spot. If you stood up to your boss, especially when you're meeting your boss for the very first time, and you tell your boss, "I'm not wrong about this. You're wrong, and you're being unreasonable," especially when the boss is in the right, I don't think it's going to go over well for you 99.9% of the time. However, saying that it wouldn't go well for you 99% of the time implies that there actually is 1% of the time where this might actually work. And folks, that's exactly what transpired at the 1992 NFL Draft. Because this man right here is Virginia quarterback Matt Blundin. And prior to the draft, he had a pre-draft visit with the Kansas City Chiefs that left the Chiefs speechless. And what should have potentially been a detriment ended up being the reason that the Chiefs drafted him. What would have taken him off just about everyone else's board turned out to be the reason that Kansas City spent high draft capital on the man. And it's a story that nearly 3.5 decades later deserves a deep dive today. Because this is the story behind Matt Blundin, and what might just be, considering the circumstances, the absolute dumbest reason to draft a player in NFL history. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, hype up that video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing, and for hyping up the video, and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's talk about the blunder with Matt Blundin. But before I get to what exactly the Chiefs decided to do, we need some context to understand just who this man right here, Matt Blundin, is, and how good of a player he was in college. Blundin didn't play a lot at Virginia to start his career off, which makes sense because for the first 3 years of his time with the Cavaliers, Virginia had a darn good starting quarterback in Sean Moore, who led the ACC in touchdown passes in 1989 and 1990, finished 4th in the Heisman voting in 1990, guided Virginia to the 4th best offense in the country and a Sugar Bowl appearance in 1990, which was by far the greatest bowl game they ever made, guided Virginia to an ACC title for the first time ever in 1989, received first-team All-American honors in 1990, and was so good that he ended up getting his number retired by the school, making him the 6th and, to date, the last player to have his number retired by the school. In other words, no one was starting over Moore, so Blundin rode the bench for his first 3 seasons with the program, which, while it made sense, was also a bit of a red flag back then, since the Bill Parcells philosophy of starting and winning X amount of games and taking a ton of snaps was prevalent back then. One-year starters were not looked well upon going into the NFL draft. Blundin had thrown just 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions off the bench in his first 3 seasons. So the only way he was going to catch the attention of the NFL was with an incredible 1991 season out of nowhere. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Because in Blundin's only season as a starting quarterback, he was incredibly smart and incredibly efficient with the ball. I should note that during the Gator Bowl, he threw an interception. But during the regular season, Blundin set an NCAA record by finishing the year with 19 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions. He threw 224 passes in the regular season, completing over 60% of them, and not one of them got picked off. He did all of this while leading the ACC in completion percentage, yards per attempt, and passer rating, all while having the 3rd highest passer rating in the entire NCAA, and all while being named the ACC Player of the Year. 0 interceptions, zilch, nada, none. For some perspective on how good Blundin was, his 19 passing touchdowns was the 2nd most in program history at the time. And for some more perspective on how good he was just the 6th player in school history to win the ACC Player of the Year. And during that 1991 season, Blundin guided Virginia to a top 25 finish in the regular season and an appearance in the Gator Bowl, with the Cavaliers ending the regular season having not lost their final 8 games. Bottom line, Blundin was good and was understandably getting national attention in the NFL draft, seeing as he was named Player of the Year in one of the top conferences in football and did it all while throwing 0 interceptions. And one of the teams that was interested in Blundin was none other than the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs had a bit of a hole at quarterback, and it was going to come as no surprise that the Chiefs would take a quarterback high in the draft, seeing as they said as much midway through the 1991 season. General Manager Carl Peterson said that this class of quarterbacks in 1992 was the deepest class at the position since 1983, which obviously looks insane in hindsight, but it seemed like it was a matter of when, not if, the Chiefs would take a quarterback. It wasn't just the general manager and front office who wanted to do it. An unscientific poll of Chiefs fans had roughly half of them wanting to spend their 1st round pick on the quarterback position, with 198 out of 484 fans wanting a quarterback as the 1st pick, and the second option, a defensive back, being a distant second. And while the Chiefs did sign former Seattle Seahawks quarterback Dave Krieg during the 1992 offseason in free agency, Krieg was 34 years old and was coming off of a season where he threw more interceptions than touchdowns. Clearly, he was not the long-term guy. The Chiefs made it to the playoffs in 1991 and made it to the divisional round with a 10-6 record. But with Steve DeBerg no longer in the picture, the Chiefs' question mark at quarterback was a huge issue heading into the 1992 season, if they were going to improve upon that mark in head coach Marty Schottenheimer's sports season with the team. Knowing this, the Chiefs decided to have a pre-draft visit with the man you've been watching this entire time, Matt Blundin. Each team has a different philosophy with pre-draft visits, their importance, and how they utilize them. But pre-draft visits usually consist of some sort of workout, plus some interviews and a film session, where the coach will go over plays with the player in question and break them down to see how smart they are or to get an idea of what they were thinking. They want to pick their brain. This is especially common with quarterbacks, seeing as the coaches want to know whether the quarterback can diagnose the coverage, can speak the terminology, can draw up plays, and all of that stuff. With that in mind, Marty Schottenheimer was going over this with Blundin on the visit and was showing off some of the bad plays that Blundin made. And while it is true that Blundin did not throw an interception during the regular season in 1991, he had quite a few throws that easily could have been picked off. He had some plays where he threw it into double coverage, or where his feet weren't set, or he missed an open receiver, or where his accuracy might not have been the best. Blundin didn't make a ton of mistakes, but he was not perfect by any means. And the slow start he had at the Gator Bowl against Oklahoma, including a bad interception in the first half, proved just that. So Schottenheimer was going over some of Blundin's bad plays to try and pick his mind. Schottenheimer wasn't exactly afraid to call out his quarterback if he made a bad decision. He infamously did that during Week 4 of the 1985 season when he was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns after his quarterback, Gary Danielson, made a pass that Schottenheimer thought was really stupid, even though the pass went for a touchdown. And you can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. And you would expect during this sequence that Blundin would tell Schottenheimer what he was thinking on the play, or why it failed, or how the defense disguised the coverage, or what the progression was. However, Blundin did not do that. He did not do that at all. Instead, he called out Schottenheimer. When Schottenheimer tried to call out Blundin for making what he thought was a poor decision, Blundin pulled an Uno reverse card and stood up for himself and stood up to Schottenheimer. As Schottenheimer would later recall, I pointed out something I thought was maybe a bad decision where he threw a ball. He didn't say too much about it or try to defend it. I ran it again and made the same comment. I ran it back finally a third time and said, "You really had your mind made up where you threw the ball." Blundin then told me he read the defense correctly. He said, "Coach, I knew exactly what I was doing. I just threw it to the wrong place." In other words, Blundin said that Schottenheimer was wrong, and Blundin told Schottenheimer what he thought of his analysis, much like that Family Guy cutaway I led the video off with. And keep in mind that this wasn't Schottenheimer trying to pull a gotcha moment where he would intentionally say something dumb to see how Blundin would respond. Schottenheimer was adamant that Blundin made a mistake, and Blundin stood up for himself and told Schottenheimer to shove it. Now, for 99.9% of teams, this would be a red flag, a giant red flag. They'd see a player who was combative. They'd see a player who couldn't take criticism. They'd see a player who wasn't going to listen to his coach. They'd see a player who was unwilling to learn and grow from his mistakes. And I'm not saying that this necessarily defines Matt Blundin, but first impressions mean everything. And for most people who meet him for the first time, when he's supposed to be on his best behavior, they take him off their board or think twice about taking him, especially with high draft capital. If this is what he's going to do when he gets constructive criticism and fails at something, oh man, that's not good. But for Marty Schottenheimer, amazingly enough, this was not a red flag. For Schottenheimer, this was the moment the professor told Peter Griffin that he passed the test after standing up to him. Because as Schottenheimer said, I like that. To be an effective quarterback, you've got to have a little fire in your neck. Now, I'm not sure what fire in your neck means, because if your neck is flaring up, that's not exactly a good thing. I know about the whole no pain, no gain thing, not when it comes to the neck. However, you get the idea. Schottenheimer, amazingly enough, liked the fact that Blundin stood up to him, even though Schottenheimer was adamant that Blundin was wrong. How much did Schottenheimer like this? He liked it so much that with pick number 40 in the NFL draft, and with the Chiefs on the clock near the middle of the second round, the Chiefs decided to draft Matt Blundin, making him their highest drafted quarterback since they infamously spent a first-round pick in 1983 on Todd Blackledge. I'm not sure if the Chiefs would have taken Blundin if not for that, but it's crazy to think about Blundin telling Schottenheimer to shove it in what I presume was a heated exchange, seeing as Schottenheimer mentioned fire, and Schottenheimer actually gaining respect for him, just like the cutaway with the professor gaining respect for Peter after the final exam. It was an unconventional strategy and an unconventional reason for a team to draft a player. And unfortunately for Kansas City, there's a reason very few teams and organizations have done something like this. Because to say that Blundin was one of the biggest busts in Chiefs history would be putting it lightly. Blundin, despite being a second-round pick, and despite being the third quarterback off the board, did nothing with the Chiefs, going 2 for 8 with 15 yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 12.5, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. That was his entire career with the Chiefs. 2 completed passes. Seriously. For some perspective on how bad he was, Tommy Townsend ended his Chiefs career with more completions than Matt Blundin. And Tommy Townsend is a punter. Blundin threw 1 more pass to the NFL when he joined the Detroit Lions in 1997, which was intercepted, meaning that he ended his career with as many completed passes to his own team as he did to the other team. And unsurprisingly, there is a reason that the only time you hear of Blundin's pro career is when you hear of how bad the Chiefs were at drafting quarterbacks before they got Patrick Mahomes. The man who, in 1991 with Virginia, led the ACC in yards per pass attempt, averaged just 1.7 yards per pass attempt in his NFL career, which, out of 113 quarterbacks to throw at least 9 passes from 1993 to 97, ranked 113th, dead last. This was at a time where anything under 6 was really bad, just to give you an idea of how unplayable Blundin was in the NFL. So no, this did not work out for the Chiefs, and what seemed like an incredibly stupid and backwards reason for drafting a player in foresight turns out to also look incredibly stupid in hindsight. So for any players who are on pre-draft visits, who are breaking down film with the head coach of a team that they might get drafted to, it's probably not a good idea to do what this man right here did and try the Matt Blundin strategy. Your mileage may vary. It increased his draft stock for some inexplicable reason, but it likely won't increase yours. Standing up to a man you just met who could be your future boss and telling him how much his opinion sucks and telling him that he's wrong and being unfair is probably not going to work out for you, even if it worked out for Matt Blundin and his draft status in 1992. Because I think it's fair to say that at the 1992 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs committed a big blunder by drafting Blundin. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.